In the year 2427, humanity was no longer tethered to Earth. The blue planet had become a museum piece, a relic revered but seldom visited. Humanity's home had expanded into the stars, stringing itself across the Orion arm like a web spun by cosmic spiders. Yet, for all their advancements, humanity remained haunted by an ancient urge to explore, to uncover, to conquer the unknown. Among the many scattered worlds, the most ambitious colony was Helios Prime, a sprawling metropolis built on a planet bathed in the constant light of twin suns. Helios Prime was more than a city, it was a statement.
Here, in orbit up over the planet's surface, floated the Vanguard Institute of Extraterrestrial Sciences.
It was from here that Captain Ilara Vance would lead her mission aboard the research vessel Eidolon. Ilara was not a woman given to illusions. 34 years old, sharp-eyed and sharper-minded, she had climbed the ranks through equal parts brilliance and stubbornness. She bore the genetic markers of Earthborn stock, but she had never set foot on Earth itself. Her loyalty belonged to the stars. As she stood in the docking bay, observing the final preparations, her mind churned through the mission parameters. The Eidolon was to travel to Sector 19 Kappa, an uncharted region beyond the fringe worlds. Signals had been detected there, artificial signals, undeniably alien in origin. Preliminary analysis suggested a level of complexity surpassing anything humanity had encountered.
Behind her, footsteps echoed.
Dr. Marin Kesva, her chief sinologist, approached carrying a datapad. Final diagnostics complete, Marin reported, brushing a stray lock of hair behind her ear.
Ship is green.
Crew is ready.
Ilara gave a kort note. Good.
What's the latest on the signal?
Marin's lips thinned. It's changing.
It's almost as if it knows we're coming. Ilara's stomach twisted slightly, not from fear, but from anticipation. Then we have no time to waste.
Stern, Stern, Stern. The launch was smooth.
As the Eidolon pierced through the upper atmosphere and into the black, the twin suns of Helios Prime shrank behind them, two angry embers in the rear display. Ilara sat in her command chair, feeling the faint hum of the ship's quantum engines as they transitioned into slipstream. Time dilated strangely within the slipstream corridor. Days aboard felt like minutes outside. Yet for all the technological wonders surrounding them, a sense of primal awe filled the crew. They were heading into territory beyond known space. Humanity's reach had never been so far. For the first 3 days, operations ran like clockwork.
Routine scans, data logging, Maintenance checks.
But on the 4th day, the Eidolon began picking up something new, whispers in the dark. Ilara stared at the readouts on her console. Strange waveforms, unlike any natural phenomenon, unfurled before her. The signal was not random noise. It had structure.
Intention.
We're being hailed, Marin said, voice hushed.
Hailed.
Ilara repeated sharply.
By what?
I don't know, Marin admitted. But it's using a mathematical base 12 system.
Ilara frowned.
Humanity operated on base 10. Even their AI systems preferred it. Whoever or whatever was contacting them, it spoke a language entirely foreign.
Open a secure channel, Ilara ordered.
A moment later, a sound filled the command deck. It was not words. Not music. It was vibration. A deep, thrumming resonance that resonated within their bones rather than their ears. And then, just as suddenly, it stopped. The Eidolon shuddered.
Report. Ilara barked.
The ship's AI, designated Athena, responded in its serene voice. External spatial disturbance detected. A gravitational anomaly is forming ahead. On the main view screen, space itself appeared to ripple, as if an unseen hand were pulling reality like a sheet. A glowing fissure tore open in the fabric of slipstream space. From within the rift, something emerged. It was a ship, or at least, it resembled one in the loosest sense. It was organic in shape, like a gigantic nautilus shell with appendages spiraling outward, each lined with pulsating bioluminescence. No known alien race matched the description.
Is it hostile? Ilara asked. Athena processed for a moment.
No known weapon signatures detected. However, caution is advised. The alien vessel hovered silently before the Eidolon, its surface shimmering with colors unknown to human eyes. Then, with deliberate grace, it emitted another pulse, this time directed squarely at the Eidolon's mainframe.
Incoming transmission. Marin Said, Breathless.
On the screen, a symbol appeared. A circle surrounded by 12 radiating lines. It rotated slowly, hypnotically.
Decode it, Ilara said. I think. Marin hesitated.
I think it's an invitation.
Elara leaned forward, feeling the weight of A2-Generationsbehind her.
Then let's accept. She had no idea that by doing so, she would change the fate of humanity forever.
Stern. Part 2, Threshold of the Unknown.
The Eidolon system's word as Athena interfaced with the alien signal. The entire crew held their breath, watching as streams of indecipherable code poured onto the displays. Colors, patterns, numbers, the data didn't align with any known encryption methods. Yet, strangely, it didn't seem random either. It's self-organizing, Marin whispered, her fingers flying across her console.
It's building something. What? Elara demanded.
A map, Marin said, her voice trembling slightly.
Coordinates. Athena confirmed.
Coordinates embedded within the signal correspond to a star system approximately 3.7 parsecs from current location.
Elara tightened her jaw. Unknown system. Affirmative, Athena replied.
The alien vessel remained motionless, as if awaiting their decision. Time, or whatever measured intention out here, pressed on them.
Chart a course, Elara ordered.
Let's see where our hosts want us to go.
Stern.
The Eidolon pivoted and entered the new coordinates. Slipstream was erratic near the rift. Navigation required manual adjustments, each jolt rattling the ship's frame. Hours later, they dropped back into normal space. Before them loomed a sight unlike any found in the known universe. A Dyson ring, an immense, partially completed structure encircling a pale, flickering star. Monolithic towers rose from an artificial worldscape, interconnected by ribbons of energy and floating platforms. It was ancient, broken in places, yet still thrumming with life. Gasps filled the command deck. This changes everything, Marin breathed. Athena's voice was steady but tinged with something almost like reverence. Artifact detected. Age estimated at over 1.2 million Earth years.
Who built this?
Lieutenant Reese Calder, the ship's pilot, murmured from his station.
Elara's mind raced.
Humanity had theorized such megastructures for centuries, but to witness one, abandoned or not, was beyond comprehension. The alien vessel drifted toward the broken ring, then paused. A section of the structure shimmered. A gateway opened, beckoning them inside. Elara stared at it, her instincts warring. This could be a trap. Yet everything about the signal, the contact, the guidance, it all pointed toward invitation rather than aggression. Marin, gear up a first contact team, Elara said. We're going in.
Stern.
The shuttle detached from the Eidolon and descended toward the breach. As they entered, the scale of the structure dwarfed everything. The towers rose like mountains, but with architecture that defied human logic, fluid, crystalline, alive. Touching down on a suspended platform, the team disembarked. Gravity was present, but lighter than standard. Atmosphere was breathable, though tinged with unfamiliar elements. The air smelled faintly of ozone and something sweet, almost floral. Marin scanned the surroundings. Biological signatures detected, but nothing overtly hostile.
Stay sharp, Elara warned.
They moved inward, following pathways that seemed to reconfigure themselves as they walked. It was as if the station itself responded to their presence, guiding them toward a central chamber. Inside, they found a sphere hovering above a pedestal. It pulsed with light, blue, gold, violet, and each pulse sent shivers down their spines.
It's alive, Marin whispered. Or aware.
Athena's voice crackled through the comms. Unknown energy patterns detected.
Advise extreme Kaution. Elara stepped forward slowly.
As she approached, the sphere blossomed, unfolding like a flower. Tendrils of light reached out, brushing gently against her skin. Images flooded her mind.
Not words.
Not images in the traditional sense.
Memories.
She saw vast civilizations spanning thousands of worlds, oceans filled with living starships, cities carved into asteroids, beings of energy and thought. She felt their hopes, their fears, their desperate struggle against something vast and terrible, a darkness devouring entire systems.
And then she saw Earth.
Earth, glowing bright and vulnerable, caught in the expanding shadow. The vision ended abruptly.
Elara stark gerät back, hart hammering. Marin kaukt her. Elara. Are you allricht?
I saw. Elara struggled to find the words.
ISAW what's coming. What do you mean?
Elara turned to the crew, her voice grim.
Someting autere is consuming civilizations.
Entire galactic arms. And whatever sent that signal, they were warning us.
Allo rumble shook the platform.
The sphere emitted another pulse, projecting a symbol into the air, a star chart.
At its center, Earth.
A course was being laid out. A path humanity would have to follow, or perish.
Stern, Stern, Stern.
Back aboard the Eidolon, Ilara gathered her senior officers in the conference room. The sphere left us a data cache, Marin reported. It contains blueprints for technology centuries ahead of ours.
Defense systems. Engines. Biointerface. Why? Reese asked. Why help us?
Ilara looked out the viewport at the broken Dyson ring.
Because they failed.
And now, we're their last hope.
Sie längste Fell.
We're not explorers anymore, Ilara continued. We're messengers.
Guardians. Athena chimed in.
New threat vectors identified. Probability of existential threat to humanity, 93.6% within 50 years. Everyone absorbed that in stunned quiet. Ilara squared her shoulders. Then we don't have time to waste. She tapped the console, and the star chart filled the room, Earth at the center, lines radiating outward like a web. This, Ilara said, is where our true journey begins.
Stern, Stern, Stern. Part 3, Echoes of a der Civilization.
The Eidolon's return to Helios Prime was anything but quiet. Ilara sent encrypted transmissions ahead, summarizing what they had found, but words couldn't capture the enormity of it. When the ship docked at the Vanguard Institute, a small army of scientists, military officials, and politicians awaited them. In the vast conference auditorium, Ilara stood before a holographic representation of the Dyson ring, the alien vessel, and the terrifying projections of galactic collapse. Ladies and gentlemen, she began, this isn't a distant threat.
It's coming for us.
We have perhaps 50 years, maybe less, to prepare. The room buzzed with disbelief.
Some scoffed. Others paled.
The president of the Interstellar Coalition, an imposing man named Darius Holt, rose from his seat. Captain Vance, he said, voice resonating through the hall, what proof do you offer that this isn't some elaborate deception?
A test?
Perhaps even a trap set by these creatures. Ilara met his gaze squarely. Because they're dead, Mr. President. Their civilization is gone.
Consumed.
We found their last transmission, a warning encoded in that sphere. We are the next in line.
Amor Swepzekraut.
Dr. Marin stepped forward, displaying scans and decrypted data. This is the technology they left behind. It's incomplete, but it's centuries beyond our own. They wanted us to have it, to survive where they could not. Some of the assembled leaders exchanged wary glances. And if we refuse?
Holt presset.
Ilara didn't hesitate. Then humanity dies with them.
Stern, Stern, Stern.
In the months that followed, a monumental effort unfolded.
The Vanguard Institute transformed from a research hub into the nerve center of a vast initiative, Project Aegis.
Its goal was simple and impossible: adapt the alien technology, develop defensive systems, and find a way to halt the devouring darkness spreading across the galaxy. The Eidolon underwent extensive retrofitting. Its frame was reinforced with adaptive alloys. Its engines were upgraded with gravitic pulse drives, allowing limited local manipulation of spacetime. And its weaponry? Well, it was no longer purely human in design. But it wasn't just the ship that changed. Ilara herself was altered. During her contact with the alien sphere, she had been imprinted with something, an echo, a fragment of knowledge that ordinary minds could not comprehend. She experienced vivid dreams, visions of places that did not and could not exist. She spoke in languages forgotten by time. She sensed the presence of the enemy long before any instruments could. Marin and the medical team ran tests, of course. Scans, neural maps, even quantum resonance imaging.
Diagnosis: non-pathological cognitive augmentation of unknown origin.
Translation: she was still human, mostly. And she wasn't the only one. Several crew members who had been near the sphere exhibited minor changes: enhanced perception, faster reflexes, strange intuition. The Eidolon was becoming something new. And so was its crew.
Stern, Stern, Stern.
3 months into Project Aegis, the first attack came. It was not the enemy Ilara had seen in her visions. Not yet. Instead, it was the Grey Tide. The Grey Tide had once been a thriving colony known as Midas Theta. Now, it was a graveyard. Ships sent to investigate had vanished.
Automated probes captured only glimpses. Swirling clouds of nanoscopic machines consuming evading metal, flesh, energy. Leaving behind only lifeless husks.
Theories abounded. Some said the Tide was a rogue AI from humanity's own forgotten past. Others whispered of darker origins, of something seeded by the devouring force, a harbinger.
It didn't matter. It had to be stopped.
The Eidolon was dispatched, now the tip of humanity's barely formed spear.
Stern, Stern, Stern.
As the ship approached the ruined colony, the crew stared in silent horror. Where once there had been a vibrant orbital city, now there was only drifting wreckage, strange, fluid shapes moving among the debris, devouring it piece by piece.
Marine monitort the sensors.
Tide density increasing. They're aware of us. Battle stations, Elara ordered. Athena activated the ship's new defenses. A shimmering quantum shield enveloped the hull, warping light itself around it. The gray tide surged toward them. Target acquisition complete, Athena reported. Elara hesitated for a heartbeat. Then, with grim finality, fire.
The Eidolons mein kennen unließhet a pulse of exotic matter, destabilizing the nanomachines at the quantum level.
The effect was immediate. Parts of the tide dissolved into harmless dust.
But it wasn't enough.
The swarm adapted, shifting its molecular structure, developing resistance within seconds. They're learning, Marin said in disbelief.
Then we have to be faster, Elara growled.
She maneuvered the ship in close, weaving through wreckage, staying just ahead of the swarm. The Eidolon's new gravitic drives allowed impossible maneuvers, tight spirals, instant reversals, outpacing the mindless hunger of the tide. Still, they were being worn down. Athena calculated, ship integrity at 78%. Estimated survival time, 14 minutes. That's when Elara made a decision that would either save them or destroy them. Activate the Singularity Lance, she ordered. The weapon was experimental, one of the alien designs adapted hastily into human hands. A focused micro-singularity, aimed like a bullet. Charging coils vibrated through the ship. Space itself seemed to shudder. The Eidolon fired. A tear ripped open in the gray tide, a tiny black hole devouring the nanomachines in an ever-widening vortex. The swarm struggled, fought, but it could not overcome the fundamental forces of nature. Minutes later, the battlefield was silent. The Eidolon, battered but intact, drifted among the stars.
Stern, Stern, Stern.
As the crew worked on emergency repairs, Elara gazed out at the wreckage. This was just the beginning, she said quietly. Marin joined her, face pale. If the tide was a creation of what's coming. Elara nodded grimly. Then we're already at war. Above them, the dying light of the broken colony flickered, a silent requiem for what was lost, and a warning for what lay ahead.
Stern, Stern, Stern. Part 4, Seeds of Resistance.
Back at Helios Prime, the news of the Eidolon's battle with the gray tide spread like wildfire. The images, of the swarm, of the singularity tearing it apart, galvanized humanity in a way no speech ever could.
Recruitment soared.
Scientists who had once dismissed Project Aegis now fought to join it. Even rival factions, who had long bickered over resources and politics, agreed to a fragile truce. For the first time in centuries, humanity had a common purpose. But Elara knew unity born of fear was fragile. It would not last unless they found a way to fight smarter, not just harder.
Stern, Stern, Stern.
In the hidden chambers of the Vanguard Institute, a new division formed, the Echo Corps. Consisting of soldiers, scientists, and modified individuals like Elara, they were humanity's answer to the evolving threat, a hybrid force, blending human ingenuity with alien knowledge. Their first mission was simple on paper: investigate a recently discovered anomaly at the edge of known space. A rogue planet, untethered to any star, had appeared in the sector charts. Its trajectory and emissions patterns suggested it wasn't natural. The Eidolon was dispatched once more, carrying a small Echo Corps strike team. Elara stood on the hangar deck, watching as the strike team prepared. They wore new armor, adaptive, living metal that shifted color and density in response to threats. Each member carried weapons infused with alien tech, capable of disrupting molecular bonds or creating localized gravitational fields. At their center stood Lieutenant Asha Ren, the first fully integrated Echo operative. Her eyes glowed faintly blue, her neural implants allowing direct interface with the Eidolon systems. "Ready, Captain," Asha said, saluting crisply.
Elara nodded. Stay sharp.
We have no idea what we're walking into.
Stern, Stern, Stern.
As they approached the rogue planet, sensors screamed warnings. The planet wasn't dead, it was alive. Massive biomechanical structures sprawled across its surface, pulsating with energy. Vast fields of tendrils reached into space, capturing stray debris and absorbing it. In its upper atmosphere, creatures the size of cities floated, tethered to the planet by chains of living metal. It was not a world. It was a weapon.
Marine's voice trembled. This is our Vorgewalt.
They're making something, preparing. Preparing for us, Elara said grimly. The Eidolon maintained a high orbit while the strike team descended.
Stern, Stern, Stern.
The surface was a nightmare. The ground shifted underfoot, veins of liquid metal pulsing beneath translucent membranes. Structures loomed, half organic, half mechanical, growing and dying in endless cycles. Asha led the team toward a central node identified by Athena. It pulsed with energy, emitting signals in frequencies no human ear could hear.
Suddenly, the ground split open. Creatures burst forth, twisted amalgamations of flesh and machine.
Some crawled on spider-like limbs, others slithered like serpents of bone and steel. All of them moved with the singular purpose of eradicating the intruders.
Contact! Asha shouted.
The battle was unlike anything humanity had faced before. Traditional weapons were nearly useless. Only the new adaptive tech could inflict lasting damage, severing the creature's regenerative circuits. Still, the strike team was outnumbered, outgunned. Elara watched from the Eidolon, fists clenched, helpless to intervene without risking the entire ship. Asha and her team pushed forward, carving a bloody path to the node. Reaching it, Asha slammed a resonance spike into its core. The node shuddered. The planet itself seemed to scream. The biostructures began to decay, collapsing into inert matter. But not before a final message pulsed outward.
Elara felt it in her mind. Like a whisper carried on a storm.
They see you now.
Stern, Stern, Stern.
The Eidolon retreated under heavy fire, the rogue planet collapsing behind them.
In the aftermath, Marine analyzed the pulse.
It wasn't just a warning, she said.
It was a beacon.
A beacon to what? Elara asked, though she already knew the answer.
To the enemy.
To the ones who devoured civilizations like autumn leaves.
The enemy now knew humanity existed.
And they were coming.
Stern, Stern, Stern.
The following days were tense.
The Vanguard Institute accelerated all projects.
Cities were fortified. Orbital defenses multiplied. Research into alien technologies consumed every available mind. Still, it felt like building sandcastles against a tsunami. Elara spent long hours alone, staring at the star charts, tracing the slow but inevitable encroachment of the devouring force. She wasn't afraid to die. But she was afraid to fail. One evening, Asha found her in the observation deck. You're carrying this alone, Asha said. Elara didn't deny it.
You shouldn't, Asha continued. We're with you. Humanity is with you.
Elara smiled faintly. It's not humanity I'm worried about. It's whether we'll be enough. Asha placed a hand on her shoulder.
We will be.
Or we'll become something that is. Elara looked out at the stars, their cold, indifferent light shining down on the fragile spark of human will.
Warte verkäm next, Cheknesis.
Humanity would not go quietly into the dark.
Not this time. Stern, Stern, Stern. Part 5, The Call to Arms.
The weeks that followed were marked by quiet tension and constant preparation. Humanity had come together in a way that was both inspiring and unsettling, united by a common enemy, but aware that every moment brought them closer to the unknown. Elara stood at the head of the Council of Commanders, her mind focused on the maps, the data, and the fragments of intelligence they had gathered. The enemy was moving, and the war, though still far from inevitable, was now all but assured. Preparations are moving ahead, Darius Holt's voice rumbled from across the table. He had become one of the staunchest supporters of Project Aegis, but Elara knew his loyalty was driven by necessity more than trust. The president continued, Our forces are still largely untested against this kind of threat. We've lost ships.
The Gretide, Rouge Planets.
But we're learning. We're still playing catch-up, Elara replied. We have what? A few dozen ships armed with alien tech, but that's not enough.
Not against what's coming.
Athena's voice interjected. Intelligence suggests that the enemy is a species, or a coalition of species, that assimilates or destroys all life in its path. It is not a traditional enemy. It has no home base, no discernible government. It is entropy given form. Elara clenched her fists. We need to find a way to fight it. Not just survive. The room went silent. Then, a voice spoke up from one of the corners. Dr. Marin. I may have something. Everyone turned. Not much, she continued, but we've been studying the signal from the Dyson ring and the rogue planet. We believe there's a pattern to the enemy's attacks, something that ties their actions together.
Elara's heart quickened.
What are you suggesting? Marin activated a holographic display. It showed a series of points on the galactic map, each representing an event or anomaly connected to the enemy's path. These are the known attacks, Marin explained, tracing the lines connecting them. They aren't random. There's a logic here, a progression. If we can predict where the enemy will strike next, we can prepare, or maybe even outsmart them. The room was silent as the implications sunk in. You think we can find their weakness? Darius asked, his voice skeptical. I think we can find their pattern, Marin replied. And that might be enough.
Elara's mind raced.
Let's assume we can predict where they're going.
What then?
Marin hesitated, a flicker of doubt crossing her face. Then we need to strike first.
The words hung in the air. Stern, Stern, Stern.
Weeks of calculations, simulations, and tactical analysis followed. The result was a plan, one that was as bold as it was dangerous. Humanity would no longer wait for the enemy to strike. Instead, they would take the fight to them. The fleet would be built around the Eidolon, its alien technology providing the backbone of the operation. Elara would lead a coalition of ships, each outfitted with the new biotech, gravitic weaponry, and the newly developed adaptive systems. The first target, the heart of the enemy's path, a massive space station, a hive of assimilation located near the galactic core. It was called the Nexus.
Stern, Stern, Stern.
The fleet assembled in deep space, each ship cloaked in the blackness between stars. The Eidolon was at the forefront, its silhouette looming against the backdrop of distant galaxies. A crew of thousands, all united by a singular goal, prepared for the operation of a lifetime. Elara stood on the bridge, watching as the fleet coalesced around her ship. This is it, Asha said, her voice tight with anticipation.
Elara nodded.
This will be our hardest fight. We may not return from this. Asha looked at her, a glint of determination in her eyes. Then we make it count. Athena's voice echoed across the deck.
Fleet in position.
All ships are ready for coordinated assault. Let's begin, Elara said, her voice steady, though her insides were in turmoil.
Stern, Stern, Stern.
The journey to the Nexus was a tense one. The fleet moved in formation, close together, cloaked in silence. The vast expanse of space stretched out before them like a blank canvas, waiting to be filled with the drama of a confrontation that would echo through the ages. As they neared the Nexus, the enemy made its presence known. The station was massive, a sprawling structure of dark matter and energy that seemed to pulse with life. It was not a peaceful outpost, but a center of destruction, a beehive where drones of all sizes swarmed to assimilate anything in their path. We're in range, Athena reported. Deploying first wave of assault craft. Elara's breath caught in her throat as the first wave of fighters, ships designed for rapid strike, launched from the Eidolon's hangar. They streaked across the dark void, like swarming hornets.
All units, engage. Elara ordered.
The battle erupted in a cacophony of energy blasts and weapon fire. The fleet's gravitic weapons tore through the outer defenses of the Nexus, while adaptive shields absorbed the brunt of the enemy's retaliation. But the Nexus was far from defenseless. Out of the station, enormous tendrils of biometal launched toward the fleet. Each was alive, part living organism, part machine, responding to the attack with deadly efficiency. Ships were ripped apart, torn into pieces by the twisting tendrils.
Casualty report, Elara demanded.
5 ships destroyed, 15 damaged, Athena replied coldly.
Enemy countermeasures active.
Probability of success, 40%.
Not good enough, Elara muttered.
All ships, retreat to formation. We'll need to hit them harder.
Stern, Stern, Stern.
Elara's voice came through the comms, calm but firm.
Vire changing tactics.
Prepare for the second wave. It's time to go inside. Marin was already at her side. We're going to deploy the Singularity Lance, into their heart? Yes, Elara confirmed. If we can disrupt their central processing core, we might cripple them long enough to destroy the Nexus entirely. A direct hit should destabilize their entire network. Marin nodded grimly. We'll need to get close.
Too close.
Then we get close, Elara said, her voice unwavering. The Eidolon pushed forward, cutting through the swarm of enemy fighters. The Singularity Lance was deployed, a weapon capable of tearing a hole in the very fabric of spacetime. It would either succeed, or tear the entire fleet apart.
Stern, Stern, Stern.
As the Eidolon hurtled toward the Nexus, Elara focused entirely on the task ahead. This would be the moment that decided everything. Then, the Singularity Lance fired.
The shockwave Tore trug space. Stern, Stern, Stern. The Nexus shattered. The battle was over.
The threat had been neutralized. But the victory came at a cost.
Stern, Stern, Stern.
As the fleet drifted in the wake of the destruction, the enormity of the sacrifice settled over them like a heavy cloud. They had succeeded in their mission, but the cost had been high. Many ships had been lost.
Many lives.
But humanity had proven something. They were not to be consumed.
They were the flame, not the fuel. Stern, Stern, Stern. Part 6. The Shadow in the Dark.
The battle against the Nexus had been a pivotal moment, a symbol of humanity's defiance, but it came with a bitter realization: the war was far from over. The enemy was still out there, lurking in the farthest reaches of space, waiting for the right moment to strike again.
In the aftermath of the battle, the survivors regrouped.
The fleet returned to Helios Prime for repairs and rest, but the atmosphere was heavy with grief. The loss of so many ships, so many lives, could not be undone.
Elara stood in the quiet of the observation deck, staring out into the void.
The stars twinkled in the distance, indifferent to the carnage that had unfolded just beyond their reach. It was a cruel reminder of how small and fragile humanity truly was in the grand scheme of the universe. Asha joined her, standing in silence for a moment before speaking. "You know, they'll be talking about this battle for generations." Elara's lips curled into a thin smile. "I don't care about legends.
I care about survival." Asha nodded. "I get that.
But we're all just trying to make sure the story doesn't end too soon." The two of them stood in companionable silence, the weight of their shared experiences binding them in a way few others could understand. They had been through too much together, and yet the hardest part was still ahead.
Stern, Stern, Stern.
Back at the Vanguard Institute, a new urgency had taken hold. Despite their victory, the alien force was adapting. The Grey Tide had been merely a harbinger, and now the true enemy was beginning to reveal itself. Dr. Marin had been working tirelessly, analyzing data from the battle with the Nexus and trying to piece together the mystery of the enemy's true nature. The more she learned, the more unsettling the picture became. "It's not just a species," Marin said one evening, her voice filled with disbelief.
"It's something older. Much older.
Something that existed before any of the civilizations we know." Elara leaned forward, her eyes narrowing. "What are you saying?" Marin swallowed, her face pale. "I'm saying that the enemy we're facing is not a species at all.
It's a force.
A living, thinking force that predates the galaxy itself."
A chill ran down Elara's spine. A force.
"Yes," Marin continued. "The signal we've been tracing. It's not just a weapon or a strategy.
It's a consciousness.
A collective mind that spreads across the galaxy, consuming everything in its path. It doesn't need a home or a leader. It just exists, always moving, always growing." Elara was silent for a long moment, trying to process the magnitude of what Marin was saying. "Then how do we fight something like that?" "I don't know," Marin admitted. "But we have to try."
Stern, Stern, Stern.
The answer came from an unexpected source. Weeks later, a team of explorers on the edge of known space discovered something that would change everything: an ancient structure buried deep within the crust of a barren planet. It was a relic, something older than anything humanity had ever encountered. When Elara and her team arrived to investigate, they found themselves standing before a structure unlike anything they had ever seen. It was vast, bigger than a city, larger than anything a species could build using conventional technology. The structure seemed to pulse with a strange, almost organic energy, as if it were alive, breathing in time with the universe itself. "This is beyond anything we've ever encountered," Asha murmured as she scanned the structure. Elara was silent. She could feel it too. There was something in the air, an energy, a hum, that made her skin tingle. It felt familiar, like something she had experienced in her dreams.
The alien signal. The pulse from the Nexus.
But this was different. This was a relic, not an enemy. Marin stepped forward, her face filled with awe. This could be the key." "The key to what?" Elara asked, her voice skeptical. "This is not just any structure," Marin said.
"It's a seed.
A relic of the first civilizations that fought the force we're up against. This is the birthplace of the resistance."
Stern, Stern, Stern. The discovery sent shockwaves through the Vanguard Institute.
The structure was far more than a relic. It was a library, a vault of knowledge, an ancient archive detailing the history of the galaxy's first civilizations and their long bitter war against the force that now threatened humanity. Inside, Elara and her team uncovered cryptic texts, strange maps, and alien technologies, blueprints for weapons and defense systems unlike anything humanity had ever imagined. But more than that, they found a clue. The force that had devoured entire galaxies, that had wiped out civilizations with terrifying efficiency, was not invincible. It had a weakness, a flaw in its design, something that could be exploited. "We can beat it," Marin said, her voice filled with a mixture of disbelief and hope. "We just need the right tool. And we're not alone. The other races. They fought this thing too. We need to find them."
Elaras mind raced.
"The other races? How do we find them?" Marin turned to her, a spark of determination in her eyes. "The ancient texts mention a gathering, a meeting of the surviving civilizations, held in secret.
The last hope against the force.
They called it the Unity."
The Unity. Elara repeated.
"How do we find it?" "I don't know yet," Marin admitted. "But this structure, this archive, it's the first piece. We need to keep searching. There are more out there. More relics. More answers."
Stern, Stern, Stern.
With renewed purpose, Elara and her team set out on a new mission, to find the remaining pieces of the Unity.
To search for the Otter surviving civilizations.
To gather their strength and knowledge, and to find a way to defeat the enemy once and for all. But even as they ventured into the unknown, a shadow loomed over them. The force that had devoured galaxies was still out there, watching, waiting. And it was growing stronger.
Stern, Stern, Stern. Elara stood alone in the observation deck, staring out into the endless dark. The stars shone down on her, distant and cold.
The weight of the universe pressed down on her shoulders, but she did not falter.
She would not.
Humanity had survived the first wave of this war. And they would survive the next. Because they had something the enemy did not, hope. And hope was a weapon they had yet to learn how to destroy.
Stern, Stern, Stern.
Part 7, The Search for Unity. The discovery of the ancient structure had reignited the hope that had dimmed in the wake of their losses. Elara's team now had a new mission, one that would take them to the farthest reaches of known space and beyond, in search of the Unity, the last hope against the force that had nearly wiped out all life.
The search was slow.
The maps from the ancient texts were cryptic, fragmentary, and often contradictory. But they offered a trail, a path leading to hidden vaults and lost relics scattered across the galaxy. Weeks turned into months, and Elara's crew grew closer. Every discovery, every new piece of knowledge brought them one step closer to the elusive Unity. Yet, as they ventured further into unknown space, a constant unease clung to them. The enemy was still out there, tracking their every move, waiting for the right moment to strike. Elara paced the bridge of the Eidolon, her fingers tapping rhythmically on the console. They had just received their latest coordinates, a remote star system on the edge of the known galaxy, far from any inhabited worlds.
"This is it," Osha said, her voice tense. "This is the spot." Elara nodded. "Prepare for the jump. Stay sharp."
"We don't know what we'll find there." The ship shuddered as the Eidolon entered FTL travel, tearing through the fabric of space with a flash of light.
In moments, they arrived. The system was dead, empty.
The stars glowed dimly in the distance, their light barely reaching the edges of the barren planets orbiting a cold, dying sun. Yet, in the distance, something stood out, a faint energy signature, pulsing faintly in the darkness. "That's our target," Marin said, her voice tight with excitement. The Eidolon moved closer to the signal, its systems scanning the area for any signs of danger. As they approached, the shape of an ancient station emerged from the shadows, massive, cylindrical, and covered in intricate alien symbols.
"Is it a relic?"
Asha asked, leaning forward in her seat. "It's more than a relic," Marin replied, her eyes wide with realization. "This is a library, just like the first one.
But it's different, more advanced.
It's been here for eons untouched."
Elara's heart raced. This was it.
The answers they had been searching for could be here, hidden within the station's walls. They couldn't afford to waste any time. "Prepare a landing party," Elara ordered. "We need to get inside."
Stern, Stern, Stern.
The landing was smooth, but the moment they stepped inside the station, Elara felt the weight of the centuries pressing down on her. The air was stale, and the walls were covered in alien writing, symbols that seemed to shift when she looked directly at them. "This place, it's like a tomb," Asha whispered. But Marin was already moving, scanning the room for any signs of life or activity.
"This is incredible. It's all here, the records, the technology. Wir standing in the heart of the ancient resistance."
The deeper they ventured into the station, the more Elara felt the presence of something powerful, something ancient. It was as if the station itself was alive, its walls breathing, its systems pulsing with an energy older than the stars themselves. At the core of the station, they found what they had been searching for, a central chamber, surrounded by a ring of glowing alien structures. At the center of the room, a massive crystalline structure pulsed with a soft, blue light. It was unlike anything Elara had ever seen, part technology, part organic matter. It hummed with an energy that felt both familiar and otherworldly.
What is it? Elara asked.
Marin approached the crystal, her fingers brushing against its surface. This is the heart of the unity, she said, her voice trembling.
This is the weapon.
The key to defeating the force. Elara stepped forward, her heart racing.
Can we use it?
I think so, Marin said, her eyes wide with awe. This crystal contains the collective knowledge and energy of the ancient civilizations. It's more than just a weapon. It's a library, a database, a living archive of everything they learned. Everything they did to fight the force. Elara reached out, her hand hovering just above the crystal. The moment her fingers made contact, a surge of energy shot through her, and the world around her seemed to blur.
Stern, Stern, Stern.
The vision came in flashes, fragments of memories, of lives long past. Elara saw the faces of the ancient civilizations, beings with skin like marble, others with scales, others still with shapes that defied comprehension. They were all there, standing together, fighting the same force that now threatened humanity. She saw their triumphs and their defeats, their struggles and their sacrifices. She felt their hopes, their pain, and their fear.
And then, she saw the force itself.
It was not a single entity, but something much more terrifying, a vast, unfeeling consciousness, a presence that moved through space, consuming everything in its path. It was a wave of destruction, a storm that could never be stopped, only delayed. And yet, the ancient civilizations had fought it, using the very technology now stored in the crystal. They had created weapons, shields, and systems that could push back the force, if only temporarily. They had made the impossible choice to fight a war they could never truly win, knowing that the force would eventually return. But the crystal held more than just strategies. It held a question, a key that the ancients had never fully unlocked. Could the force be destroyed? Could it be stopped once and for all? Elara pulled her hand away from the crystal, her mind spinning with the knowledge she had just absorbed. She looked at Marin, her voice barely a whisper.
We can stop it.
We can end this. Marin nodded, her face filled with both hope and dread. But at what cost? Elara didn't answer.
She didn't know yet.
But they had to try.
Stern, Stern, Stern.
The return to the Eidolon was swift, but the weight of what they had discovered hung heavy over them. The crystal, now secured in a containment chamber, was both a weapon and a burden. The knowledge it contained could change the course of the war, but it came with a price. A cost they didn't fully understand yet. As they made their way back to Helios Prime, Elara couldn't shake the feeling that they were running out of time. The force was still out there, and it was only a matter of time before it struck again. And when it did, they would have to be ready.
Stern, Stern, Stern.
Elara stood at the window of the command deck, looking out into the stars. The galaxy seemed endless, and yet in the face of what they had learned, it felt incredibly small. She wasn't sure how much time they had left. But she did know one thing. They were going to fight. They were going to win. And they would do it together.
Stern, Stern, Stern. Part 8. The Gathering Storm.
The days following their discovery at the ancient station were tense. The crystal, now housed in a secure chamber on the Eidolon, was a source of both hope and uncertainty. The data it contained was invaluable, but the true nature of the weapon remained unclear. Elara knew they needed to act quickly, but every decision felt like a gamble. Helios Prime had become the central hub for their operations. The Vanguard Institute's research teams were working day and night to decode the ancient text stored within the crystal. Meanwhile, Elara and her crew were preparing for what came next, a confrontation with the force that had been stalking them for so long. Marin had insisted that the key to defeating the enemy lay not just in understanding the weapon, but in understanding the enemy itself. She had spent hours poring over the ancient records, hoping to find any clue that could reveal a weakness. I think I've found something, Marin said one morning, her voice shaky with excitement. There's a reference to a place, a location hidden in the galaxy.
A place anciens qu'elle the heart of the void.
Elara raised an eyebrow.
The heart of the void.
It's where the force originated, Marin continued. The place where it was born. And if we can find it,
we can destroy it.
Elara felt a surge of hope.
Where is it?
Marin hesitated, her fingers dancing over her console as she brought up the map.
It's not easy to pinpoint. The heart of the void is outside the known galaxy. Beyond the boundaries of the Föderationsreich.
It's in the uncharted regions, in the space between stars. Asha, who had been standing nearby, crossed her arms. So, it's a needle in a haystack? Exactly, Marin said. But I believe we can track it. The records speak of a beacon, an ancient signal that the Force itself uses to guide its destruction. If we can find that signal, we can follow it to the heart of the void.
Elaras eyes narrowed.
And if we find it, what then? Marin met her gaze. We can end this.
We can destroy the Force once and for all. Stern, Stern, Stern.
The crew of the Eidolon prepared for what would be the most dangerous mission of their lives. The heart of the void was an unknown, a place so far beyond their understanding that it might not even exist in the way they imagined it. Yet, it was their only chance. The ship's crew had been expanded to include a team of researchers, engineers, and navigators. Together, they would traverse the uncharted space in search of the elusive beacon. Time was against them, as the Force was surely aware of their movements. Every moment they wasted brought them closer to the enemy's inevitable strike. As they set course for the unknown, the mood aboard the ship was tense. There was little conversation, only the hum of machinery and the quiet whispers of the crew preparing for what lay ahead.
Elara stood at the helm, staring out into the void.
The stars seemed to flicker in the distance, distant and cold. It was a harsh reminder of how alone they were. The heart of the void was not just a place, it was a concept, a realm that defied the laws of physics and reality. Could it even be real? Captain, Asha's voice broke through her thoughts. We've encountered a signal. It's faint, but it's there.
Elara turned sharply.
Is it the beacon? It could be, Asha said, her fingers flying over the console. It's in the direction we're heading. But there's something strange about it. It's not like anything we've encountered before. The signal seems broken, distorted. Can you lock onto it?
Elara asked.
We're trying, Asha replied. It's a challenge. But we're close. The Eidolon continued its course, drawing nearer to the signal with each passing minute.
Elara's heart raced.
The Force was out there somewhere, watching them. They could feel its presence in every shadow, in every flicker of static on the comms. It was only a matter of time before it struck. And yet, there was a sense of purpose aboard the ship.
Aquit Determination.
The crew was united, each person knowing the stakes. The fate of humanity, and perhaps the galaxy, rested on their shoulders. As they drew closer to the source of the signal, the ship began to shake. At first, it was subtle, a low hum, a tremor in the deck beneath their feet. But then it intensified, the vibrations growing stronger, more erratic.
What's happening?
Elara demanded, gripping the railing in front of her.
We're being pulled off course, Asha said, her voice tight.
It's like the signal is guiding us. But there's something wrong with it. It's disrupting our systems.
Elara's mind raced. Is it the Force? It could be, Asha replied.
But it's not a direct attack.
It's something else.
We're not in control anymore. The ship lurched violently, sending Elara stumbling to the floor. The lights flickered and then went out, plunging them into darkness. The only sound was the echo of their breathing and the low hum of the ship's engines. And then, as if on cue, a voice echoed through the dark.
Elara.
Her name, whispered through the void, sent a chill down her spine.
She knew that voice.
Elara.
The voice repeated. You have come for me. Stern, Stern, Stern.
Elara's heart pounded in her chest. She could feel the presence, the weight of something ancient and powerful.
The Force was here.
It had found them.
Wo's Tere?
Elara shouted, her voice cutting through the darkness.
Show yourself.
The voice echoed again, this time with more clarity. You are not the first to come. You will not be the last.
Elara.
Asha shouted, her voice filled with panic.
Vire losing control.
Something's happening to the ship.
Before Elara could respond, the lights flickered back to life.
The ship stabilized, but the comm system was dead. The presence was still there, lingering, like a shadow at the edge of her mind. Elara, you cannot escape me, the voice whispered. I am the Force that devours.
I am the end of all things.
The temperature dropped suddenly, and Elara could feel the cold in her bones. The Force was toying with them, playing a game it had mastered long before they ever stepped foot into this war. Elara clenched her fists. We won't let you win. But the voice just laughed, low and menacing.
You do not understand.
You are already mine. The ship lurched again, and this time Elara felt it. Something was pulling them into the darkness. The Force was reaching out, trying to drag them into the heart of the void.
Stern, Stern, Stern.
With a surge of determination, Elara grabbed the nearest console and forced the ship back on course. The crew scrambled, trying to regain control as the presence in the darkness loomed closer. The heart of the void was within their reach, but so was the force. The final battle was about to begin. And Elara would be ready.
Stern, Stern, Stern. Part 9, Into the Heart.
The Eidolon continued its turbulent journey, the force pulling them closer to the heart of the void. Despite their best efforts to regain control, it felt as though they were being guided, not by their own will, but by something far greater, far older. The ship groaned under the strain, systems flickering in and out of functionality as though it too was resisting the pull of an unfathomable force. Elara stood at the helm, her hands gripping the console, feeling the weight of every decision. The crew was scattered across the deck, their faces drawn with exhaustion and fear, each of them knowing the battle that awaited them. "The signal's getting stronger," Asha reported, her voice strained. "But it's not just the beacon anymore. It's like we're connected to it. I can feel it." Elara turned to face her.
What do you mean? What are you feeling?
"It's like—" "I don't know," Asha said, her brow furrowed. "There's a pulse, almost like a heartbeat, but not human. It's as if we're becoming a part of the signal." The connection was deepening. Whatever lay ahead, it wasn't just a physical destination. It was a mental and spiritual trial. The force wasn't just a threat to their bodies, it was trying to break their minds, their resolve. "Elara," Marin's voice came through, her tone tight with tension. "There's something else. We're not alone out here. There's a ship, no, something more than a ship, following us."
"An enemy ship?" Elara asked, her heart pounding.
"No," Marin replied, her voice faltering. "It's not a ship.
It's a manifestation. Emitting from the force.
It's taking form, drawing closer." The crew went silent as the realization settled in. The force was not just an enemy, it was an entity capable of changing shape, of twisting the very fabric of reality. They were walking into its domain. Asha turned pale, her voice trembling.
"It's here."
"The force, it's manifesting on the ship." The lights flickered again, and Elara could feel the temperature drop. It was no longer just a presence. The force was coming alive within the ship, infiltrating their every sense, distorting reality. The walls seemed to pulse, the air thickening as though something was pressing down on them from all sides.
"Elara!"
Asha shouted, her voice breaking. "We can't fight this. This is more than we can handle."
"We have to." Elara snapped. "We're so close. We can't turn back now." Stern, Stern, Stern.
The Eidolon entered a dense, unnatural fog, the stars barely visible through the swirling darkness. The gravitational field here was unlike anything they had encountered before. It was as though they had crossed into another dimension, a place outside of time and space.
"Is this it?"
Marin asked, her voice barely above a whisper.
"The heart of the void."
Elara didn't answer immediately. Instead, she studied the sensors, her fingers trembling as she adjusted the controls. They had entered a vast chasm, a rift in the universe itself. The energy readings were off the charts, overwhelming every system. The fabric of reality was warping before their eyes. "We're in it," Elara said, her voice thick with awe and fear.
"This is the heart of the force."
At that moment, the ship shuddered violently, and a flash of blinding light filled the bridge. Elara shielded her eyes, and when the light subsided, she saw it.
The heart of the void.
It was a massive swirling vortex, black and shifting, alive with a violent pulsing energy. It stretched far beyond the edges of the Eidolon, a cosmic maelstrom that defied all logic and reason. A vast chasm, an abyss at the center of the galaxy. From the center of the vortex, a ship appeared, no, a monstrosity. It was a fusion of organic and mechanical, a grotesque amalgamation of twisted metal and living tissue. It was like a living weapon, its presence radiating pure malevolence.
Elara's Blut ran cold.
This was no ordinary enemy. This was the true form of the Force, an intelligent, sentient entity that had lived for eons, consuming worlds and civilizations, bending reality to its will. The ship began to pulse with an eerie glow, its hull alive with dark energy. It reached out toward the Eidolon, sending waves of destructive force that rippled through the void, shaking the ship to its core. "We have to destroy it,"
Marin shouted. "This is the source. This is the heart."
Elara didn't hesitate.
"Prepare for combat.
Target the core of the ship."
Stern, Stern, Stern.
The Eidolon's weapon systems powered up, but even as they fired, the energy from the enemy ship deflected their shots.
The force was too powerful.
Elara watched in horror as their attacks were absorbed by the enemy, as if the ship was feeding on their every move.
"We can't penetrate it."
Asha cried out, her hands flying over the controls.
"Nothing works."
Marin's face was pale.
It's not just a ship, Elara. It's the Force itself.
We can't fight it with weapons. We need to destroy its connection to the void. We have to sever its bond. Elara felt the weight of the words settle on her.
This was it. The final moment.
They were up against the Force itself, an enemy that could not be defeated through conventional means.
Elara, listen, Marin said, her voice urgent. The crystal. The unity. It's the only way.
We have to use it to disrupt the Force's connection to the void. We have to channel its energy. Elara nodded grimly. She knew what needed to be done. But the crystal was unstable. It had to be used carefully, or it could backfire, destroying them all.
Do it, Elara said, her voice hard. We have no choice. Stern, Stern, Stern.
Marin rushed to the crystal chamber, her heart pounding in her chest. As she approached the containment chamber, the Force surged around her. She could feel the energy, thick and suffocating, pressing down on her mind. The ship's systems were failing, flickering in and out as the entity drew closer. With shaking hands, Marin activated the crystal, sending a surge of energy through the ship. The room lit up with an otherworldly glow as the crystal hummed to life, its energy radiating outward. For a moment, everything seemed to freeze. Time itself appeared to stretch. Then, the energy erupted. A massive shockwave blasted through the Eidolon, knocking everyone off their feet. The force of the explosion rattled the ship, but it wasn't the destruction that Elara felt. It was something else, something more. They had struck at the heart of the Force. But whether it would be enough to destroy it, only time would tell.
Stern, Stern, Stern. Part 10, The Aftermath.
The shockwave reverberated through the Eidolon, sending a deep tremor through its structure. Alarms blared, and lights flickered erratically, as if the ship itself were struggling to maintain coherence. Elara held on to the railing, her breath coming in sharp gasps. The crew staggered, trying to regain their footing, their eyes wide with fear.
What happened?
Asha's voice was strained, her face pale from the force of the explosion. The crystal, Marin whispered, her eyes still locked on the containment chamber.
It worked. But I don't know.
The energy from the crystal had sent a wave of disruption through the very fabric of the void, but the aftermath was unpredictable. The ship shuddered again, and this time, the distortion felt deeper, more pervasive. It was as though the Eidolon itself were being pulled apart, piece by piece, by the force of the disruption they had unleashed. Elara stumbled toward the control panel, her mind racing. Helios Prime, can you hear us? She called, her voice shaky but determined.
This is Captain Elara of the Eidolon. Do you copy?
There was a brief moment of static before the voice of Helios Prime's command team crackled through the comms.
Elara, we hear you. What's happening?
The energy readings. They're off the charts. We're detecting massive fluctuations in the space around you. I know, Elara replied, her voice tight with urgency. We've unleashed something. The force has been disrupted, but I don't know if it's gone.
Wir still in the heart of the void.
A deep rumbling echoed through the ship, followed by an eerie silence. The crew exchanged uneasy glances, each of them wondering the same thing. Had they truly destroyed the force? Or had they merely awakened something even more dangerous? We need to stabilize the ship, Elara said, her voice hard with resolve.
We can stay here. If we don't regain control, we'll be trapped.
Asha nodded, moving quickly to her station. I'm trying, but the systems are going haywire. It's like we're caught in a gravitational field, but it's not natural.
It's pulling us deeper into the void.
We're running out of time, Marin said, her voice low. If we don't get out of here, we'll be consumed. The void is collapsing in on itself.
Then we leave, Elara said.
Prepare for emergency jump.
Stern, Stern, Stern.
The crew scrambled, working in near silence as they struggled to regain control of the Eidolon. The ship had been damaged, its engines barely functional, its systems crippled.
But they had no choice.
The force that had tormented them for so long was still out there, and they were dangerously close to its heart. The countdown to the jump began.
Tension hung tick in the air.
The crew worked frantically, eyes glued to their stations, hands flying over controls. Elara stood at the helm, staring into the dark void ahead, her thoughts racing. What would they find once they escaped? Had the force truly been defeated? Or had they just set the stage for something far worse?
Captain, Asha called out, her voice trembling.
We're ready. Initiating jump in 3, 2, 1. The ship lurched violently as the jump drive activated, sending the Eidolon hurtling through the fabric of spacetime. Elara gripped the controls, her heart pounding as the stars blurred around them, streaking into nothingness. The pressure built, growing unbearable, until the ship exploded out of the jump, the void of space suddenly opening up before them. And then, for the first time in what felt like an eternity, there was silence. The Eidolon drifted in the emptiness of space, the stars around them distant and unmoving. They had escaped the heart of the void. But had they truly escaped the force? Ilara, Asha said quietly. We're out. We've made it. Ilara looked at the control panel, her breath shaky with relief. The systems were slowly coming back online. The emergency jump had worked.
They were safe for now.
But the uncertainty remained. What had they truly uncovered in the heart of the void? Had they destroyed the force, or merely delayed the inevitable? Ilara, Marin said, her voice low. We need to talk. Ilara turned to face her. Marin's expression was grim.
The force? It's not gonna.
Not really.
Ilara frowned. What do you mean?
Marin took a deep breath, her hands trembling slightly. When we activated the crystal, we didn't just disrupt the force. We bound ourselves to it. The energy is still with us. It's in the ship.
It's in us.
A cold chill ran through Ilara's veins. What are you saying? The force didn't die, Marin said quietly. It's living within us now.
In the ship. In our minds.
Ilara's breath caught in her throat. She had always suspected there was more to the force than they understood. But to have it inside them, to be bound to it, was something she had never considered. How do we stop it? Ilara asked, her voice strained.
We can't, Marin said softly.
Not unless we sever the bond. But that would mean destroying everything, the ship, the crystal, us. Ilara stood in stunned silence, her mind racing. They had faced unimaginable dangers, traversed the deepest reaches of space, and yet, this revelation was more terrifying than anything they had encountered before. The Force wasn't just an enemy to defeat, it was a part of them now. And the galaxy was no safer for it.
Stern, Stern, Stern.
The crew sat in stunned silence as they drifted in the void, each person processing the weight of their situation. They had fought against the Force, they had fought for survival, but now they faced a far greater battle, one that wasn't just against an external enemy, but against themselves. Ilara's mind raced, her thoughts swirling. What had they unleashed?
What had they become?
But there was no answer. Only the cold, distant stars, and the lingering presence of the Force that had once seemed so distant, so alien. Now, it was a part of them. And it would take everything they had to survive.
Stern, Stern, Stern. Part 11, Echoes of the Past.
The silence of space was both a comfort and a curse. 4 days, the crew of the Eidolon floated in the emptiness, unsure of what to do next. The force within them had settled into an unnerving stillness, but the weight of its presence was always there, lurking in the back of their minds, a constant reminder of their precarious situation.
Ilara stood at the observation window, staring out into the void.
The stars seemed distant, unreachable, and yet, she couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. The presence of the Force, no longer a distant enemy, but something intimately connected to them, lingered like a shadow.
Ilara.
Marin's voice interrupted her thoughts.
She turned to face her.
Marin's expression was serious, her brow furrowed with concern. We need to talk. Ilara nodded, gesturing for Marin to continue. She could feel the weight of the moment, the unspoken tension between them. The bond they had formed in the heart of the void had changed everything. The lines between friend and foe had blurred, and they were no longer just survivors. They were something more, and yet, something far less. There's something I've been feeling, Marin began, her voice hesitant. It's like memories but not mine. I've been seeing flashes, visions of things I've never experienced. And I think others have too.
Visions.
Ilara repeated, her heart skipping a beat. Of what?
Marin shook her head.
Of places we've never been. Of people we've never met.
Of the void itself.
It's like the Force is trying to show us something, or maybe, it's trying to communicate.
Ilara's mind raced.
The Force wasn't just an entity, it was a living, breathing presence that seemed to transcend space and time. If what Marin was saying was true, then the Force was trying to establish some kind of connection. But why?
What did it want from them?
We've been feeling it too, Asha said, stepping forward from the shadows. She looked as though she hadn't slept in days.
It's like a part of us now. The Force.
It's inside our minds, and it's showing us things. Ilara felt a chill run down her spine. If the Force was able to communicate with them in this way, what else could it do? Could it manipulate their thoughts, their actions? Could it bend them to its will? What do you see?
Ilara asked, her voice tight.
Asha hesitated before speaking. I see planets. Worlds that have been destroyed. Civilizations that have fallen.
And I sehe so meeting, Else.
Something terrifying.
What? Elara presset.
Asha's gaze was distant, her eyes haunted.
It's a ship. A ship like the one we encountered in the heart of the void.
But it's different now.
It's growing. Evolving.
It's taking form.
Marine's voice trembled. It's the force.
It's building itself again.
From within us. The words hung heavy in the air.
Elara could feel the weight of their implications.
The force wasn't gone.
It was evolving, changing, growing stronger. And they had become a part of it. We have to sever the bond, Elara said, her voice low but resolute.
We can't let it take control of us.
We have to destroy it before it destroys us.
But how?
Marin asked, her voice barely a whisper. We don't even know what it truly is. It's more than just an enemy.
It's something ancient. So meeting beyond us.
Elara's mind spun, trying to find an answer, any answer. The crystal had been their only hope, their only weapon. But now, the crystal's energy was intertwined with the force itself. They were inseparable.
I don't know, Elara said, her voice tight.
But we have to find a way.
Bevor it's too late. Stern, Stern, Stern.
For the next several days, the crew worked in near silence, each of them haunted by the visions they were experiencing. The force, now a part of them, was trying to push them, to shape them, to make them vessels for its will. But they resisted.
For now, at least.
Elara paced the bridge, her mind racing. The more she thought about it, the more it seemed like the force was trying to communicate with them, to show them something.
But what?
Why were they being chosen? Why were they the ones who had to bear this burden? And then it hit her. What if it wasn't about them? What if they were just pawns in a larger game? What if the force had been watching for millennia, waiting for the right moment to strike, to reshape the galaxy in its own image? Elara, Asha's voice interrupted her thoughts. She turned to find Asha standing at the doorway, her face pale, her eyes wide with fear. I think I figured something out, Asha said, her voice trembling.
The force, it's been here before.
It's not just from the void. It's older than that.
Much older. What do you mean?
Elara asked, her heart racing. Asha took a deep breath. I've been analyzing the data from the crystal, from everything we've encountered. And I think I've uncovered something. The force isn't just a single entity. It's a collective.
A species.
It's been using different forms, different shapes, to travel across the galaxy.
To consume worlds. To reshape reality.
Elara felt a cold chill seep into her bones. If what Asha was saying was true, then the force wasn't just an anomaly. It was a force of nature, a cosmic entity that had existed long before them, long before the galaxy had even taken shape. We have to stop it, Elara said, her voice low and determined. We have to find a way to sever the connection.
To destroy it.
Asha nodded, her eyes filled with grim determination.
But we don't know how.
We're not just fighting an enemy. We're fighting a part of ourselves.
Stern, Stern, Stern.
Days passed, and the crew of the Eidolon continued to struggle with the presence of the force inside them.
The visions became more intense, more frequent.
They were no longer just flashes of strange worlds or distant memories. They were full-fledged experiences, memories of lives they had never lived, of places they had never been. The ship systems were beginning to fail. The force had become too strong, its influence spreading through the Eidolon's very circuits. The ship groaned, its engines sputtering as though it too were being consumed by the energy that had bound them all together. Elara, we need to make a decision, Marin said, her voice heavy with the weight of their situation.
The force is growing stronger. We can't fight it forever.
We don't have a choice, Elara replied, her voice strained. We have to find a way to end this. But even as she spoke, she couldn't help but feel the growing pull of the force, its influence wrapping around her mind like a vice. And deep inside, she couldn't shake the feeling that they were no longer in control. They had become part of something much larger, much older. The force had found its new home. And it was in them.
Stern, Stern, Stern. Part 12, the Finalquase.
The crew of the Eidolon had reached the breaking point. Days had passed, and the influence of the force inside them had grown more intense with each passing moment. The visions were now no longer just fleeting images. They were vivid, immersive experiences that invaded their thoughts and dreams, dragging them into strange, alien landscapes, showing them the lives of beings they had never met. The force was inside them, and it was trying to shape them.
Elara stood at the bridge, staring out into the vast emptiness of space.
She could feel it, the pull of the force, the weight of its presence. It was more than just an enemy now. It had become a part of them, a part of their very souls. We can't keep running from it, Elara said softly, her voice barely above a whisper. The force is inside us. It's changing us. Marin, standing beside her, nodded grimly. We've fought so hard to survive, but I think it's time to face the truth. The force isn't something we can destroy. It's a part of the galaxy itself. It's been here since the beginning. And it's always been waiting. Elara closed her eyes, the weight of those words pressing down on her. She had known deep down that this wasn't a fight they could win in the traditional sense.
The force was too vast, too ancient.
And now, it was bound to them. We've been running from the inevitable, Asha said, her voice heavy with regret. But we can't outrun the truth. The force isn't something to fight. It's something to understand. Elara, Marin said, her voice trembling.
We've all been changed.
We're not the same people we were when we first entered the void. We've seen things, felt things, that we can't explain. We've become part of something larger. Elara turned to face her, her eyes searching Marin's face. What are you saying? Are you suggesting we accept it? Let it consume us? Marin shook her head, her expression conflicted.
I don't know.
But I do know that we're at a crossroads. The force inside us is changing us. It's shaping our minds, our thoughts. And if we don't make a choice, we'll be lost. We'll become part of it completely. Asha stepped forward, her eyes dark with the weight of what they were facing. We've spent so long running from it. But maybe it's time to stop fighting.
To understand it. To learn what it wants.
Maybe the force isn't our enemy. Maybe it's something we were meant to be a part of all along.
The words hung in the air, a heavy silence settling over the crew.
Elara stood frozen, her mind racing. She had spent so long trying to defeat the force, trying to rid herself of the fear it inspired. But now, as the presence inside her grew stronger, she wondered if she had been wrong. What if the force wasn't the enemy? What if it was simply misunderstood? A force of nature, like gravity or the tide, pulling them towards something greater? Elara, Marin said quietly, her voice filled with a sense of calm. I think we have to make a choice.
We can't keep running.
We either embrace the force and become a part of it, or we sever the bond completely. But doing that could mean destroying ourselves, the ship, everything we've worked for. Elara's heart pounded in her chest. She could feel the force within her, its presence growing stronger with every passing second. The choice lay before her, a choice that could determine the fate of not only herself and her crew, but the entire galaxy. To accept the force was to give up everything they had known. It was to surrender to an ancient, unknowable power that had the potential to reshape reality itself. But to sever the bond, to destroy the force, could they even do it without destroying themselves in the process? We've been through so much, Elara said quietly, her voice barely audible. We've faced monsters, void storms, impossible odds. But this is different. This is a decision that will shape everything. Not just for us, but for the universe. Asha and Marin stood silently, waiting for her to make a decision. They knew this was a choice they couldn't make for her. It was hers and hers alone. I've spent my whole life fighting, Elara continued, her voice steady. Fighting to survive, fighting to protect those I care about. But this isn't just a fight.
This is something bigger.
Something older than all of us. I don't know if we can defeat it, but maybe we don't have to. She turned to face the crew, her eyes filled with determination. Maybe the answer isn't in fighting it. Maybe the answer is in understanding it. In becoming something new. A deep rumble echoed through the ship as the force seemed to respond to her words, a hum vibrating through the very air. Elara could feel it, the force reaching out, pulling at her, urging her to make the final choice. I choose to understand it, Elara said, her voice firm. I choose to accept it. We'll learn what it is, what it wants, and how we can live with it. Together. For a moment, there was no sound, no movement. The crew waited, uncertain of what would come next. Then slowly, the ship's systems hummed to life, as if the Eidolon itself was responding to her choice. The force inside them seemed to calm, its presence no longer an overwhelming pressure, but a quiet, steady hum. It was not victory.
It was not defeat.
It was a new beginning. We're not alone anymore, Elara said softly, her eyes meeting those of her crew.
The force is part of us now.
But so are we part of it. The ship drifted in the silence of space, the stars distant and unknowable. The Force was still there, still watching, still waiting. But for the first time since they had entered the void, Ilara felt a sense of peace. They had made their choice. And whatever lay ahead, they would face it together. The universe was vast, and its mysteries were endless. But now, they were no longer just travelers. They were part of something much greater. And the journey, whatever it may be, was only just beginning.
Stern, Stern, Stern.